Hi, folks. I'm Adrian Sanabria, the host of Enterprise Security Weekly. Every week, we interview the most interesting folks we can find, talking about the most pressing cybersecurity issues and challenges facing the enterprise today. Myself and my co-hosts have each been in the industry for decades, long enough to see the patterns in the industry and explore where trends are going. In addition to enterprise challenges, we also follow the vendor space, the most interesting security startups emerging, technology and product trends, all the most interesting funding and acquisition announcements. Finally, we love to discuss the latest trends in tech and how they'll impact cybersecurity. If you're wondering how the latest in AI, quantum computing, cloud, and DevOps is going to impact security a few years down the road, you should follow the Enterprise Security Weekly podcast.
Welcome back to the Cyber Risk TV live stream for Oktane 2024 at Caesars Forum in Las Vegas. I'm your host, Mandy Logan, and today I'm joined by Shiven Ramji, who is the President, Customer Identity Cloud at Okta. And today we are going to talk about protecting the identity of AI agents.
That's correct. Thank you for having me, Mandy.
I am so happy that you are here, Shiv, and I want to begin just by saying, how much of a departure has it been mentally for people to realize that the identity of AI agents is basically becoming more important than their own personal identity for all digital transactions?
Yeah, so we kind of have to zoom out and maybe look at what's happening in the entire ecosystem. So, AI, but specifically generative AI exploded into the scene, a little over 2-3 years ago. And since this breakthrough that we've had, everybody's really excited to experiment with it, to use it, and we all use it as consumers. Hopefully, you're interacting with the chatbot or some of the AI tools that are out there. But for this ecosystem to develop, and we anticipate there will be a very large AI agent ecosystem, which is basically these fast interconnected programs that are working on our behalf, your behalf, my behalf. But for these projects and products to go into production, there's a big barrier, and that tends to, among other things, the big barrier tends to be around identity and security. And so and as these agents are being built, there is growing concern of, well, what is the agent doing on my behalf? Are they accessing information they should have access to? Are they doing things that I've allowed them to do, and on what conditions? And so we anticipate, the spend in this category is growing fast. It's something like to the order of 10x in 4 years.
Right.
And then recently, if you heard Mark Benioff, the CEO of Salesforce, he claimed that there'll be he envisions 1 billion Salesforce AI agents by end of next year. So everybody's experimenting, everybody is building, and so we anticipate all of us in a consumer experience or even at companies, we'll have lots of agents working on our behalf. And there is a real big consumer experience benefit here, right? But you want to make sure they're working on your behalf with the right identity and security behind them. And so that is a barrier, and that's something that we want to address, obviously.
That's very refreshing to me to hear. As you were speaking, what came to mind was how much we as intelligent, forward-thinking individuals look at AI and go, oh, this is wonderful, especially if I can relegate tasks I either don't have the time for, can't follow up on, or just don't want to do, then we want our AI agents to handle those things. However, doesn't that also open up additional threat landscape, because those are items that people put in the back of their mind as, oh, I don't have to think about this anymore.
Yeah.
And does that in and of itself adjust what the existing threat landscape is?
I think so there are several things we should talk about it. The first one is just all these AI tools make utilizing these existing threat vectors and threat landscape much faster and much cheaper. So it's like really easy. Absolutely. And you don't even have to be technical. That's the scary part. You don't have to be technical to go ahead and exploit existing vulnerabilities. So that's kind of the first thing with the rise of these generative AI technologies. Existing threats can now be amplified because they can be done cheaper and they can be done much, much faster. And you don't have to be an expert, right? So that's one. But it also introduces new attack vectors. I mean, we're already seeing a big rise in, deep fakes.
Right.
And
video and audio.
Audio, right? So it's really hard to discern what's real, right? And then there are other new things such as, if you're using large language models, which a lot of these agents will use, well, you want to make sure large language models aren't doing anything that they're not supposed to. So avoiding hallucinations. It's fairly typical that large language models will augment their intelligence with some additional data, whether it's a document, a database, a picture, something you uploaded, right, to augment the intelligence they have. But you want to make sure the agent actually is only accessing information that you have access to because it's working on your behalf. But imagine if they had access to information that was beyond your scope. Well, that would be a problem. So, and so I think data leakage and data disclosure is becoming a pretty big concern, and this is part of the reason why there's a lot of caution on deploying agents into production systems, because of this fear of have we limited what the agent can do on our behalf? And so those are some of the new sort of attack vectors when you have lots of agents working on your behalf.
Well, and I want to come back to that because my understanding with the new tool that was announced and released today on Auth for Gen AI from Okta, that there is the ability for finer grained provisioning, especially with the RAG that goes to the LLMs, so that aspect is minimized, but also enhanced in what the additional usefulness of an LLM can be. Before we talk about that too much, I want to retouch on what you've already covered, because looking at what Okta is doing, you're looking for securing how consumers are interacting with their generative AI agents. But let's go to behind the scenes. On the flip side, it's exciting to me to realize that this tool and Okta's push is for really helping how developers build AI agents into their apps. And do you feel that in the last few years, there has been such a large shift to developers now being tasked with security, where that was not the case in the past?
Yeah, the trend that we're seeing is, we all are asking developers to deliver more, deliver faster. Also, make sure it's delivered within cost, on time, on budget. And now we're also burdening them with saying, oh, by the way, now you also are responsible for security. And I just think that that's a lot that we're putting on developers to go figure out on themselves. And by the way, developers are not security experts, right?
No.
Or identity experts.
No, and as much as we all want secure by design, as much as we would love for every bit of security to be embedded from inception and it never be another thought, this isn't our reality yet.
Exactly. So what we are doing with what we're trying to solve with Auth for generative AI, and I'll explain what the specifics are. But before is that we want to make sure that we are providing these secure by default configurations and capabilities into the hands of developers, so that when they're configuring their applications using our products, they don't have to worry about security, and specifically identity security. So and I can go into what those 4 requirements are. The first one is just, in the world of AI agents, we're going to still have to do authentication, just like we check for humans, right? We verify you are who you say you are. We're going to have to do the same for agents, and that's where we have authentication services today to extend to agents. The second one is we anticipate agents will be working on your behalf and on my behalf. And we are all limited by our human input into these devices, how much you can type and how much you can browse and scroll. But if you have an AI agent working on your behalf, you'll have hundreds of agents working on your behalf asynchronously. So, but they'll be interacting with APIs quite often. And so there is this notion of agents have to interact with APIs on our behalf. The third requirement is, well, all of these LLM models are augmenting their intelligence with additional data or input. And in the case that I mentioned, it could be a document, could be a database, could be a photo. Well, whatever the model is augmenting so that the agent can be efficient or work to get to the right outcome that you want to make sure that the agent is only accessing information that you have access to and not beyond
Which is
that.
the finer grain provisioning.
Which is a finer grain provision, exactly. And then the last one is, we see a world where agents will go work on our behalf. Today, the experience is, we're all interacting with a chatbot and we get answers right away. But we're moving to a world where, especially with the recent OpenAI model that was launched o1, we're moving to a world where agents will take time to make sure they get to, it's optimized for precision, right? So it will take time. So sometimes agents will be doing complex tasks for you and may take days, weeks, maybe even months. Right. And you're not going to be there to monitor what the agent is doing. Agents will go work on your behalf. So there's all these async workflows that are being developed. So how do you handle, what do you do with authentication in the world where there's so many async workflows? So these are the 4 core requirements, and Auth4 Gen AI solves for all of these. It's a series of capabilities that helps you with agent authentication, helps you with securing third-party API. So what can an agent do with a third-party API? Third is fine-grained authorization, or Okta FGA, that helps you with finer-grained permissions on what a model can do. And then finally, for async workflows, we have a capability called async authentication.
Okay.
So what this does is, suppose an agent is working on your behalf, it's doing stuff out there. When they are ready to perform an action, they should come back to you and say, is this what you really meant, right? So you can approve or reject with a single tap. So async authentication will become really important.
But how comforting is that to know that we can delegate these tasks and enhance ultimately where either us as an individual, where our security teams, where the organization, and where customary identity as security goes forward in the global ecosystem. Yeah. But also being able to pull back and show how using these tools, to me, it sounds like it's giving a lot of love to developers. It's giving a lot of respect and recognition of, this is the current hardship that developers are going through. Let's provide this. And what do you mean by the term that developers are the new kingmakers?
Yeah. Well, I think developers are pretty influential in companies today when they're building these applications or experiences that you and I are using every day. And their influence is growing. And so when I say developers are kingmakers, what I mean is that they're really influential in making technology decisions.
Okay.
And so you have to build a product to cater to that audience, and your product has to really meet developers where they are. And so, because a lot of these decisions, by the way, when you're building an application, are done from the ground up, and it's often developers who are making the decisions. And so you want to make sure that your product is catering to that audience, meeting their needs. And that's kind of how we've built our product, which is to make sure that the developer experience is great. We have great documentation. It's easy to use. It's easy to get started. It's easy to customize. It's easy to get help. And finally, it is easy to secure, right? And so, there's a big mindset shift in how you build products that do that. And they're all geared towards enabling developers to make the right choice. And if they make the right choice, then we make their lives easier because they don't have to worry about security. And the ultimate goal is that we end up making the entire ecosystem secure. So whether if you're a consumer or you're using an application in a company, we aim to solve for all of that.
That's so beautiful. Do you feel that with the news release about Auth for Gen AI, that it can help C-suite executives really have an enhanced view of what developers are being tasked with so that they can make actionable items to support their development teams intelligently?
Yes, the capabilities that we've announced actually help different C-levels understand that they have these capabilities now. And by using our solution, they can feel much better about both the agent security, just identity, but also making sure that the agents only have access to information that they should have. And finally, that they can actually deliver these experiences. This is a new experience, right? When it's not a human interacting with your APIs, it's a third party. It is an agent working on your behalf. So it's like a new interaction model. And how do you enable that interaction model in a safe and secure way? And so that's another area that we're also focused on in terms of solving for companies, and obviously giving the C-suite the ease of giving them the peace of mind that this is secure.
That's very comforting to me to hear, and I hope that it is for everyone who is listening. So Shiv, thank you so much for joining us. This really was awesome. I appreciate this. Thank you. And thank you to our audience for tuning in for this live interview from Oktane 2024. To find all of the Cyber Risk TV coverage of this year's event, please visit securityweekly.com/Oktane. Welcome back to the Cyber Risk TV live stream for Oktane 2024 at Caesars Forum in Las Vegas. I'm your host, Mandy Logan, and today I'm joined by Arnab Bose, who is the Chief Product Officer, Workforce Identity Cloud at Okta. And today we're talking about standardizing identity security for SaaS applications. Arnab, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, this is very exciting, and honestly, I can say with great vigor that standardizing identity security sounds like a pipe dream, but I'm also exceedingly interested to understand what Okta is doing. Can you go ahead and go into that?
Yeah. So we are extremely excited about building an end-to-end security journey where customers can have a unified identity security outcome across all of their applications. This may be no surprise to you, but customers are using more and more applications than ever before.
True.
And one of the stats we saw at the keynote yesterday is that on average, enterprises have more than 1,000 applications in use today. But if we take a look at the identity security capability built into these applications that are in use, a lot of them support single sign-on, but then fewer of them support capabilities like provisioning, which would help ensure that the right person gets the right level of access to the application at the right time.
Right.
And even fewer of them support sharing risk signals. So in case there's something risky that happens within the application, other applications can take action, or the identity provider can take action. And even fewer of them support a capability like universal logout, where in case something goes wrong after you've signed in, post-authentication, you can get signed out of that application. So if you look at that end-to-end journey, from the tens of thousands of SaaS applications out there that are possible to the thousands of applications in use by the enterprise, things start whittling down pretty quickly in terms of actually delivering on identity security before, during, and after authentication. So Okta's perspective was twofold. One is we've built the products on the Workforce Identity Cloud to support identity security posture management for reducing your identity risk before authentication. We've built the products to get to phishing-resistant authentication during authentication.
Okay.
We've built the products to do identity governance and lifecycle management.
Oh, wow.
But what we need is we need the entire SaaS ecosystem to support the APIs and the protocols required to actually connect it up. So what we did was we did two things. One is we went to the top 50 enterprise applications in use today, and we worked closely with those vendors to start adding support for some of the capabilities I talked about, like universal logout or risk sharing or entitlement management. We packaged that up, and what we have available today is 125 new integration types that we're calling secure identity integrations. They're available on the Okta integration network, and you can install them in your Okta org right now. The second thing we did was we realized that we need to reduce the cost and make it far more simple for SaaS applications to support these capabilities. So we took these capabilities and we've formed a working group, which is within the OpenID Connect Foundation. We've opened it up to any other vendor or customer. So Microsoft's joined the working group. Capital One has joined the working group. I believe Ping has also joined the working group.
Okay.
And we're taking all of these capabilities and making them completely open, completely standardized, publicly documented, and driving the creation of this new protocol called IPSI, which stands for Interoperability Profile for Secure Identity in the Enterprise. So let me know if that journey made sense to you around before, during, and after authentication. It's not just the features. We need all of the apps to support the capabilities. We've done the heavy lifting of getting the top applications to support it by talking to folks like Google and Slack and Salesforce and Box and Zoom, all the major SaaS apps out there. Now we want to democratize that by creating the standard.
So it does make sense what you're describing. The journey does make a lot of sense, and it is making me think of the assistance to developers, especially in enterprises where they're developing their own applications. Do you have any real-world feedback on the use of, maybe not IPSI because it's just been released, but on Okta's posture for developing secure SaaS applications that you've seen teams already benefit from while they're doing their own development?
Absolutely. So you're spot on that customers not only use pre-built SaaS applications, but a lot of our enterprise customers have internal teams that build internal apps, which are very important for businesses. For those use cases, we have our Customer Identity Cloud product. A lot of people may not realize this, but you can use Customer Identity Cloud not only to build consumer or public-facing experiences, you can use it to build internal applications as well. And something that's really cool about Customer Identity Cloud is any application built with that identity technology automatically supports capabilities like single sign-on, provisioning using the SCIM protocol, and universal logout. So these are all announcements from Oktane this year around SCIM and universal logout that Shiv, my counterpart, talked about in his keynote. But that's super exciting. It means that if you're building a custom application, you have these toolkits to get up and running fast. We also have a developer relations team that creates sample apps. They have a whole host of YouTube videos on the Okta channel, which a developer can go watch to see how to actually put this into action today.
So I'm curious, was that used then by Okta while developing, say, FastPass, which I understand is used by all of your employees, correct?
Yes, Okta FastPass is used across the board within our own internal deployment. All of our 1,000 plus applications that we use internally are now behind phishing-resistant MFA, and we drink our own champagne. I'm trying to use a different word than eating our own dog food, and that helps us a lot because from a product management perspective, it means I get like real-time live feedback from actual end users, and so if there's any friction whatsoever, I can use that data to address that, fix the product, make it better, and hopefully make it better for all of our customers as well.
Oh, that's gorgeous. So from your experience so far, what else are you excited about for the ability of SaaS applications to have more standardized interoperability?
So one other capability I'm really excited about, delivering for a certain number of SaaS applications and then B, standardizing going forward, is a capability we released called Secure SaaS Privileged Accounts.
Okay.
So a really important use case that is often overlooked is if you take a SaaS application like a Salesforce or a Workday or whatnot, and you put it behind a single sign-on and MFA, usually those applications have to have at least one, if not many, administrative or break glass accounts. Because in order to set up the connection in the first place, you need a privileged administrator account for that application with direct access to set it up. Now, the problem is those credentials and those accounts tend to get overlooked they're not vaulted, they're not managed, they're not rotated frequently enough, and could be a way in which you bypass all security checks. So we've released this capability. It is already integrated again with the most popular enterprise applications out there. But we want all applications to support the APIs to be able to do this level of privileged account management. And that's another thing that I'm looking forward to getting standardized as part of an open protocol or standard.
That is exceedingly interesting. In your time with this product, like, as being really tasked on the inception of the products going forward, what do you see as already having made a change in the security posture of customers that are adopting, the Workforce Identity Cloud?
I think the biggest sort of security improvement and adoption success I'm seeing is the adoption of Okta FastPass. It's the fastest growing authenticator amongst our customers. It helps customers get to truly phishing-resistant authentication, but FastPass also does another layer of device checks. It can integrate with your endpoint protection vendor or your mobile device management vendor to ensure that access is coming from known, trusted devices. And the rate at which that adoption is picking up is something that's super exciting for me, because a study from Google in 2019 showed that a simple one-time passcode-based MFA was sufficient in blocking 99% of attacks. Mm-hmm. That was in 2019, which is not that far long ago. No. But in the last year or two, we've seen a massive increase in phishing attacks with all of these off-the-shelf phishing kits.
Well, in the last 18 months, we've also seen the massive increase in AI agents,
100%.
Increasing then bots that are available and have to be provisioned for identity.
Correct.
So it's different than 5 years ago,
Totally.
Even though it's not that long ago.
Correct. And so in the face of this massive change, getting to phishing resistance, getting to passwordless is a huge step up for our customers. So I'm super excited to see that picking up in pace.
And are there other industry players that you are working with that, for the standardized approach, that you haven't already mentioned?
I think I mentioned Bing, Microsoft, Google, and Capital One. So they are, I believe, they're all part of the governing body we've created for IPSI. There's also another company called SGNL or Signal.ai.
Okay.
So that forum is open. We're working as part of the OpenID Connect Foundation to make it as open and as as open for input as possible. So that's one path that we're taking. Another thing to maybe call out is, if you go back and look at the 125 new integration types, there's a whole host of applications out there where we've gone ahead and directly reached out to them and connected with them. So there are new applications like Rubrik, from which we can ingest shared signals for risk, or Workspace ONE, or App Omni. So I could go on and on, but there's a two-pronged attack over here. One is things that my team is doing directly with these vendors by contacting them and getting them to understand the value of building these identity security APIs and to the standard, and building the integration directly. And the second is what we're doing with the OpenID Connect Foundation to standardize everything and create that working group so it's codified going forward.
Excellent. So I'm curious, from the information that's already available at Oktane, for our audience, those who will be viewing this and really, I would assume, very much appreciating the IPSI standard coming out. I know the keynote yesterday referenced it. I know there's the news release on IPSI. Are there any other specific items here at Oktane that you would recommend the audience look into?
So the person who's led the formation of the working group is Aaron Parecki. He works for me. One of the things that he's published online, and we can share out links to this, is the current definition of the standard. So the current definition of the standard is actually is now publicly available. And
it is, or it is not?
It is.
It is.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah. And so there's a site you can go to, and we'll we'll share it out there in the world just to encourage people to go check it out.
And is that information coming from the inception of working toward this work group, or is this what has been modified and settled on at this point?
No, this is an initial proposal. So this is
okay.
a proposal that is open for feedback, and we're assuming that all the other participants in the working group, like Microsoft and Capital One, et cetera, will take what we have, the kernel that we've created, and enhance it going forward. Yeah.
Well, Arnab, thank you so much for this. This has been very enjoyable.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. And thank you to our audience for tuning in for this live interview from Oktane 2024. To find all of the Cyber Risk TV coverage of this year's event, visit securityweekly.com/Oktane.